well. So,
and we're recording this conversation.
Yep, we are. My name is Randy Wooden. I run Goodwill's Professional Center here in Winston-Salem. We have clients across the country. Our services are free. So if you know somebody that is, for whatever reason, in a job search, especially if they're here in the Triad, but really anywhere, have them reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, happy to help. And I'm joined by my cohort, Teddy Burriss.
Hey, I'm Teddy. I run a company called Burriss Consulting. We're social media strategists. We help business professionals use LinkedIn as a business tool. And this is an absolute joy for me to be here. Randy, do you want to do housekeeping before I introduce our special guest?
And housekeeping is?
How do you want people
No. I've only been doing this a few months. Yeah. All right. So if you look on your screen, probably at the very bottom down there, you're going to see Q&A and chat and so forth. So in the chat box, which is what you guys are using right now, if you have questions, go ahead and chat them in, and we will do our very best to keep up with those questions and try to answer those as we go along. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that's kind of the game plan with that. Anything I have left out?
You're spot on, buddy. And the fact that you and I are both wearing clean shirts today is a testament that we truly are professionals.
We stepped our game up. So
we did. So cool. Awesome. All right. So let me introduce our special guest, Marcia Davis-Cannon. She is a career transition coach, and as well as she gets involved in lots of group activities, helping other people. She's a group called the Career Actions Ministry, and I'll get her to tell us a little bit more about that. I believe that's a Saturday event. She's also a Toastmaster, and I love hanging out with my Toastmaster friends because becoming a Toastmaster changed my life in a very deliberate way. Marcia's been doing corporate career work for quite a few years, mostly regarding executive roles, and before she got into this space about really wanting to help people in this volunteer world, as well as the business she has. The conversation that Marcia is bringing to us today, that you can learn more from her website, and we'll share her website URL in the chat notes in a few minutes. The conversation that Marcia is bringing to us today, when we were talking about it, it's like, oh my God, this is perfect. This will be very useful for all of us. The conversation is strengthening resilience during job search. Marcia, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
Introduce yourself a little bit more than what I did. Tell people a little bit more about you, if you would.
All right, 3 pieces. One, the Career Action Ministry that you mentioned, we meet on the 2nd and 4th Saturdays of each month. It's free. It's by Zoom now, so you can join even from North Carolina. And I'll put the link into the chat box of our next event. It's on Eventbrite. You could register there, and we'd love to have you join us. Our next one is on networking and how to effectively network when you're sheltering in place. Cool. Secondly, I went through my own career transition and read every book I could find on people going through transitions, and found most of it not very helpful. But there were nuggets of gold as I went through, and I pulled those together and now help other people go through that kind of transition. So if you haven't figured out what you want to do next, or when you grow up, or those kinds of things, it's worth doing. And I've helped a lot of people through that, if that would be useful. And then resilience. This was the first talk I gave after sheltering in place, and it gave me a focus for those first difficult days as to what are we doing now? And, you know, we can increase our resilience at any time of our lives, but job seeking in particular is such a game of rejection much of the time that resilience is vital. And so if I can be helpful, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, cool. Really good. Really good. It's tough. Job search isn't easy. You know, at the end of the day, whatever that means to any of us in our own space, you know, whether that's, you know, late in the evening or 5 o'clock or whatever, we often sit back and we wonder, what did I just do? And did it really give me value? And is it going to help me? Did I get an interview out of it? And so, and I will be very blunt and sincere with this statement, that I understand the pain of job search because I've lost 2 friends who couldn't deal with it. And that's tough. It's real tough to see that happen. And so resilience is important. So Marcia, explain it a little bit more. Take that word and break it in pieces and tell us in the context of job search, what does that mean to you?
Resilience is the ability to get up after you've been knocked down. It's the ability to try and fail and try again and persevere.
Yeah. Hard to do.
Very hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get good training in that and sometimes we don't, right?
Get back up is what I wrote down. Get back up. I mean, I guess there's lots of reasons why people don't want to get back up. I mean, there's got to be different triggers for different people, different amounts of pressure that tell us, that get us to say in our own head, I can't do this anymore.
You know, there's something called learned helplessness.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that mean?
Sometimes we learn that we can't succeed. You've maybe been to a circus and seen an elephant, and elephants are pretty big creatures, but it's got this little bitty rope around one leg and a little tiny stake in the ground, and it doesn't run away. It could, but it doesn't. The reason it doesn't is because when it was a little elephant, it had a big chain around with a huge weight, and it would try and ultimately give up. And now all it needs is the pressure of that little rope around its leg, and it knows it can't get away when really it could. And I've found job seekers who have learned, like in 2009, there weren't any jobs there for a while. Mm-hmm. And so they would try and not get anything, and they would just say, I'm not hireable. There's no point in trying. Yeah. And even when the economy changed dramatically. And now we're in a completely different economy, and it may take completely different things, but I still know people getting hired. Yeah. And so there are opportunities. They may take different approaches. They may take different skill sets, but there are still opportunities to find.
And we'll talk about some of those challenges. And I know some of my clients face, whether it real or imagined or whatever, but hey, are my skills outdated? Is my age hurting me? There are no jobs, just a whole host of things. And on a lighter note, Teddy, remind me before we're done today, I rode an elephant in a circus, bareback.
Ooh.
Yes.
And didn't fall off.
I didn't fall off, but I'm scared of heights. And I'll tell more about that at the end. So save that for later. But
yeah, we'll save that one for later. But Marcia, I never thought about that. I mean, something as simple as that is a learned helplessness. And if we really, I mean, elephants aren't stupid either.
No.
And so, for that elephant to discover or believe that little rope and that little stake is all it takes, that is monumental. That's massive. And so, I can see where that, learned helplessness can really become a critical mindset, belief for us. Yeah.
Martin Seligman, who founded the positive psychology movement and was head of the American Psychological Association for many years, his initial research was with dogs. And he had dogs in a setting that you could send a shock through the floor of that room, but they had a little barrier and they could jump over the barrier, and on the other side, they wouldn't get shocked. Some of the dogs were in this setting, and some of the dogs were in a setting where they couldn't, nothing they could do could make the shocks go away. Mm-hmm. And when they moved those dogs into the setting where they could just jump over the barrier, they didn't. Yeah. They had already learned that nothing they would do could do better. and they learned helplessness. And so they didn't take the action that could have saved them. And so the whole positive psychology movement ended up getting founded on that, because teaching resilience is a way to combat the learned helplessness that can feel like the natural result of trying and failing again and again.
And there's a whole psychology, excuse me, Marcia, there's a whole psychology about that fail fast, fail hard.
And don't see failure as a failure, right?
Yeah.
Failure is a way to learn. It's a way to know what doesn't work. Yeah. And then you can try again with something that might work. Yeah. There's actually a bell-shaped curve to how we respond to failure and trauma. We all know about the one end of that curve that is PTSD, post-traumatic stress. But there's another end of that curve that is post-traumatic growth. There are people who come out stronger from difficulty. Yeah. And there are ways that you can learn to come out stronger. So that's what resilience training is all about.
So can you share some of those ways? I mean, that would be ideal. If you're
sure.
Let me tee that up for you. There you go.
Thanks. So all right. There are really kind of 4 different things we could talk about. There are relationship things, because being in strong relationships make us more resilient. There are lifestyle things, because living a healthy lifestyle makes us more resilient. There are inner beliefs and attitudes. And then there are actions that we could take. So which one do you want me to start with?
Yeah.
The first one.
Well, Randy, we'll work on that for you later.
All right.
No, but go with that, Marcia. Go with relationship.
All right, let's start with lifestyle.
Ready.
And when I first time I talked about this, I spent very little time on lifestyle, because, you know, most people have pretty much set their lifestyle up. But when shelter in place happened, it threw our lifestyle up in the air, right? We couldn't go to the gym. We couldn't do a lot of the things that we'd maybe set up in our lives. And yet it's really important to be able to do those. When we're working, we create rituals that when we're not working, we don't always continue. So the things you would expect to make you more resilient are the things that make you more resilient. Exercise, eating well, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, doing self-care. So getting the alone time you need, getting the humor and laughter that would be useful, having a sport or a hobby, some time in nature, maybe a journaling or writing or meditating or spiritual practice. All of those things build a resilient lifestyle. It's hard to do those all at once, but if you just think about what's one more thing that I could add to my current lifestyle to make myself a little bit healthier and a little bit more resilient, think about one thing you could add.
Yeah. This morning I was on an action coach conversation. Randy knows my action coach friends in town here. And one of the philosophies the action coach says is don't strive to get 100% better. Strive to get 1% better over and over and over again. Yeah. So you don't need to take 17 different lifestyle adjustments and try to make all those happen at once, because that'll fail. Sorry. But what Teddy can do is commit to 3 days a week, 45 minutes in my workout room. I have a full workout room that's got a beautiful dusty treadmill. And, I can spend 3 days a week and commit to that. And I'm not going to worry about changing my eating habits. I'm not going to worry about changing my sleeping habits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to get convinced. No, I'm going to get strategic and deliberate about 3 days a week, 45 minutes in the weight room. And then,
what have you found in terms of committing to change, whether it's writing things down, whether it's having an accountability partner or somebody? How do you feel like you kind of keep your focus on this and making these incremental changes?
There's some great science around how we start a new habit There's some great books, The Power of Habit and Atomic Habits.
Yeah, Atomic Habit.
Essentially, they say there's always a trigger. You need a trigger. You need the ability to do it. You need the motivation to do it. And you need a reward for doing it. So there are different things that work for different people. But if you think about what would trigger you, there's also a tiny habits that's a fun little research of somebody at Stanford. He says, think about 1 minute thing that you could do that you want to do better. And I was forgetting to plug my cell phone in at night, right? How can I do that? And he says, well, think about a habit you already have. Like, okay, I always bring my to-do list to bed because I always think of things, right, to write down before I can fall asleep. And I always did that. So when I saw that, that triggered me to plug my phone in. And then it was easy because it was attaching it to a habit I already had. So for me, going to the gym, I told myself I couldn't shower at home. And I got triggered with a need to shower. And so I go to the gym to shower. And while I was there, I might as well work out. Right?
Good stuff. So.
Plus, there was a great hot tub to soak in after exercising. So.
The resilience, I like the viewpoint that resilience needs to be a lifestyle. I like that. And I think resilience in the context of job search, I'm thinking about that. And I'm thinking about, what are some habits that we should execute to be more resilient in our job search? Any thought?
I honestly think that there's more energy discrimination than there is age discrimination in employers. You need to present energy when you are interviewing. How do you get energetic, right? You need to be getting enough sleep. You need to be eating healthy. You need to be getting some exercise. And you need to be doing those things that fill you up with energy. It might be different for each of us. For me, and this is something I really miss sheltering in place, is I was a contra dancer. It's a folk dance. And I would dance at least twice a week. And it was my circle of friends. And it was a flat out workout. And it was fun. And, it's going to be a long time before we get to dance again. It's touching people. It's touching a lot of people. It's breathing their air. And it's just not gonna be a good thing. But I had to find a substitute to keep my energy high. So I have a trampoline in the backyard. That works fine.
You're right.
In the chat area, Steve mentions that for him, getting up and dressing as though he were going to work, that helps put him in the mindset that I'm at work and my job is right now job hunting. And so that's his game plan.
Awesome.
Yeah. And he also shared he has a goal every day. He has a goal every day. Connect with 20 people a day. Now I'm not going to assume that Steve can or cannot hit his goal every day, but that's a goal every day.
And it's not connect on LinkedIn alone. It's a phone conversation. It's some kind of contact with somebody. And I've known Steve for years, and I tell you, of all of our clients, he's among the very top in terms of structure. And so I think that's the structure piece, I think, gives us comfort in that it's one thing we can control. Because I think, at least I'm projecting here, but a lot of my clients feel that they're out of control of their situation. It's that learned helplessness to a degree. And one of the things, whether it's overeating, drinking, or any other crutch that people may have or addiction, for them, that's one of the few things in life they can control is their eating. So I think you're on point here with how do we structure in a positive way and so that it helps us physically, emotionally, mentally to keep in the game. But yeah, the structure and having a sense of control, I think, is pretty important.
It's vital.
Yeah.
There are really a set of beliefs that are helpful in resilience. So one of those is gratitude, right? It's hard to be filled with angst and insecurities when you're really grateful. And even though things might be hard, there's always something to be grateful for. I have noticed as the traffic has died down around me, the birds are just singing their hearts out. I don't know if they weren't singing as much before, or if I couldn't hear them before, or if I wasn't listening before. But I really enjoy the bird song in this time of sheltering. Perseverance is a second belief.
Say that word again.
Perseverance.
Perseverance.
The sort of hanging in there despite difficulty, knowing that it may not be easy, but it's worth continuing. Another one is having an internal locus of control, and that really goes to what your friend was saying. If you believe that you make things happen, that you create your own future, that's an internal locus of control. If you believe that things happen to you and it's all the fault of those people out there, that's an external locus of control. The more we believe we have control of things, the more resilient we can be, because we're not just a victim, we are a person who's making things happen. And we can't control everything. We can't control whether someone interviews us. We can't control whether someone offers us a job, but we can control how many people we reach out to every day. We can control how many jobs we apply to and the quality of our application. We can control how many people in that organization we contacted who are likely to recommend us to the hiring manager. So locus of control is huge in this. Another one is self-efficacy, which is a big word for believing in your own capability. It's, do you think you're capable of getting a job? And job seeking can eat away at our self-confidence and our self-efficacy. So having the belief that I know it's going to be hard, it doesn't mean that I'm not skilled and I'm not capable. It means that it's a difficult environment and I can carry on and find that work that fits for me. Yeah. And then there's the whole growth mindset, which is relevant to this as well, and fixed mindset, right? If you have a growth mindset, and this another Stanford professor who did this work, the initial experiment was with school children, and she invited them to do a project, and half of them got praised for being smart and half of them got praised for how hard they tried. And then she offered them an even harder problem to solve, and the half that had been praised for being smart weren't so interested in doing it because they'd been praised for something they weren't really all that sure they had, and they were afraid they'd be exposed if they did something harder. Whereas the ones who tried hard, they controlled how hard they tried, and they knew they could try hard again. And I still remember the first time I heard a talk on this, and it's like, why, the title was Why You Shouldn't Tell your kids They're Smart. I'm like, what? But praising people for what they control gives them the motivation to do more of what they can control, as opposed to the things that may feel fixed, right? If I feel like this is as good as I'm ever going to get, and this is who I am, and I don't have those skills, then I'm kind of stuck in right where I am. But if I feel like I can always learn something new, I can always meet someone new, I can always take another effort to get me further, that's having a growth mindset. No matter how old we are, we can still lay down new paths in our brain. We can still learn new things. We can still get better.
It is a little tougher, Marcia. When you get to be my age, you'll realize it's a little bit tougher, but I still agree with you. So, Steve threw out a conversation that he and I had a while back in this conversation, what can I control? And one of the things I hear people get upset about on a regular basis is they never get back to me. I asked someone to help me and they said they would and they didn't, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Steve and I talked about that. And one of the statements I said was, you just got to move on. You have no idea what's going on in that person's life, in that person's job, in their day. And so therefore you cannot expect that they respond to you in a way that you want, in a timely manner you want. Move on to the next conversation. So that's perseverance without being needy to a single person. but still persevere and keep trying. So,
That's right.
Marcia, talk a little bit more about relationships and resilience and relationships and knowing that, you know, relationships is more than just me and my girlfriend. I mean, wife. It's relationships are my relationship with you and Randy and, you know, the 42,000 people that are on this call in the context of job. Talk about that a little bit, please.
Sure. So we have relationships that are shallow and trivial, and we just see them at a chance encounter. But we need relationships in our lives that are strong and deep, and people that we feel like understand us and know us and love us anyway. And sometimes, you know, you end up spending 24 hours a day with someone when most of the time you'd been going to your separate jobs and only seeing each other a few hours a day. It takes a different skill set almost to keep that relationship strong. I put in the chat box, the very first item, I think, a handout that's got a set of links to various resources for resilience. And one of the things I put in there is a link to a blog called Momastery. And it was a blog that really hit me when I read it the first time. And I've since shared it with a lot of people. And it's about, if you want a deeper relationship, a better relationship, sometimes you need to ask better questions. And it's the story of a mom who had 3 little kids, and her husband would go off to work, and she'd have, you know, a baby and a toddler and a preschooler driving her wild all day. And the husband would come home and say, "How was your day?" And she'd think it was everything and it was nothing, and it was, my mind was boggled, and that all of these things happened, but she couldn't express it. And so she'd say, "It was fine." And yet she didn't feel seen or understood in saying that. And she says, we went to therapy, as you do, and in therapy we learned that we could ask better questions. And I encourage you to think about asking better questions in your relationship. Questions like, how could I help you right now? Or, in the last couple of days, when did I make you feel loved? And when did I make you feel invisible or unseen in some way? Think about how we could connect in a more deep way, how we could actually understand each other's feelings. We all need somebody in our life to understand how we feel and to be able to express that well. So it's a great blog, and she's got a great list of questions that you can ask to develop that. And one great question to ask is, how could I help you right now? Or what do you need right now in order to feel better? Part of having a strong relationship is being able to help others. And part of it is being able to accept help, to know when you could use some help, to know what your style of receiving help is. I read this great book, and I gave it to my son and his wife, and it was like, how have you been comforted when you were a child, and how do you like to be comforted now? And my son would come home with a challenge from work and start talking about it, and his wife would try to start solving it. And he'd say, can you just like listen and hold me? And she would have a problem and talk about it, and he would just listen and hold her. And she'd say, no, that's not going to get it solved. We need to solve this. So they had completely different approaches to problem solving. And understanding that about each other was very useful in getting to a great understanding.
You know, it sounds like my kids when they were growing up. They come home from school. How was school?
Fine.
So yeah, so you learn to try to engage with a little more than just a one-word answer. But yeah, that's all important. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that some folks were asking about that handout that you referenced, and Teddy reshared that. It's all
just reading it again.
Yeah, it's all also at the very top of the chat. If you scroll way up to the top, you should see it as well. So, anyway.
And you know, Marcia, I'm a relationship development guy. I really do. I used to call myself a networking strategist, but really it's about making connections and developing some level of relationship, building trust, respect, and like. And I know that I know from my own years of experience that the relationships we develop in life, the new relationships we create in life can have a very powerful impact on our life as well as our job search activities. The tagline for my business is that it all starts with a conversation.
Yes, it does.
Now, I wrote that years ago, and you know, I kind of wrote it haphazardly, but I don't know, over the years, actually it started with start a conversation, and then I changed it to it all starts with a conversation, because it's the people in my life that I reach out to that help me build my own personal strength, build my own I wrote self-belief because the other big word you use I couldn't spell. You know, build my focus and build perseverance and understand the power of gratitude. It's the relationships in life done right. Remember, I could do it wrong. Wrong could be, you know, find that alley bar and hang out there all day long. And Randy, I don't do that anymore. You know, it's really
what your girlfriend told me. So yeah, that's what your girlfriend told me. Yeah. Hey, by the way, we're halfway through today's
show. Go ahead.
We have Marcia Davis-Cannon. She is a job career coach and out in San Francisco. So it's earlier in the day for you. You have also a website, uncoveryourcalling.com. So we want to make sure we mention that in the notes later, but we're talking about resilience and the job search, but also this applies to real life because there's a lot of twists and turns in our lives, and employment is certainly one of them, and that's the reason you're here. But it could be health issues. I've got friends that, as we all do, who have cancer and are fighting some real challenges. And so we still want to keep the focus on job hunting, but I think this extends to more than just the job search. This whole get up and keep with it.
Yes. Very true.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about attitudes.
Let me give you one more thing on relationships before we go into attitudes, if I can. And that is assuming that people are doing the best they can. Let me give you a Brene Brown quote on this. All I know is that my life is better when I assume that people are doing the best they can. It keeps me out of judgment and lets me focus on what is and not what should or could be. Whoa. I bring that up because, especially, you know, we've got the interview, we're reaching out to people and they're not always responding. And it can be easy to judge them and get angry and upset. And they're probably doing the best they can, just as we are trying to do the best we can. And if we stay there instead of laying blame on others, it's good for everybody's peace of mind.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I get it. I really do get it. So attitudes and beliefs.
All right.
I believe that I have the right attitude. I don't care what anybody says. But how does that, and I'm being such satirical, but when you talk about resilience as we're trying to achieve our career goals and get where we want to get to, how do our attitudes and our beliefs get in the way?
You know, sometimes we have negative self-talk that can just put us in a down spiral. Sometimes we say things to ourselves that we would never allow anybody else to say to us. Mm-hmm. And we have to figure out how to change that negativity and arrest those negative thoughts. Yeah. Some of them are, sometimes it's the permanence, right? I always mess up on the second interview. I never do this thing that I'm supposed to do. Sometimes it's about pervasiveness. Everything is bad. Nothing is good. Sometimes it's personal. It's all my fault. I messed up again. Sometimes it's overgeneralization, right? Because this happened one time, therefore it always happens. Or it's catastrophic thinking. If I do that, everything's going to blow up. And we can put ourselves in this mess of thinking that things are worse than they are, and that nothing we do is ever going to do any good. There's a model. Can I share my screen?
Let me do it. Hang on a second. Yes, you can.
Thank you.
When you do it, everything's going to crash.
Yeah, it's going to all.
Oh no! Don't even try it. Oh no! My screen went dark. Broke the internet. Teddy.
Oh, golly, I'm looking at your vacation pictures.
Oh.
Last time I shared my screen, somebody saw how many unread emails I had. So good thing I got it up faster this time.
Hate when that happens.
All right, I want to talk about this ABC model. A is an adversity, anything bad that happens. B is our belief about that adversity. And C is the consequences, okay?
Yeah.
Now, it's the top half of this model. Activating event leads to beliefs about the event, and that leads to emotional consequences. Notice, it's not the adversity that leads to the emotional consequences. It is our beliefs about the adversity that lead to the emotional consequences. Yeah. And that's how you can have two people in a car crash or two people lose their jobs, and they have very different emotional consequences from that event, right? It's how what the story we tell ourselves about what happened that leads to the consequences.
Yeah.
So there's a D and an E here. The D is disputing your irrational beliefs. And E is effectively replacing those irrational beliefs with effective beliefs, right? So when something bad happens, you get laid off, you lose your job, whatever it may be, you're going to have some beliefs about that. And those beliefs may be, I've been laid off before, I've gotten a job before, I can do this again. Or that belief may be, the world is going to hell in a handbasket and I'm never going to be employed again, right? You get to choose your own belief.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever belief you choose is going to have consequences. So if you don't like the consequences, you might want to change the belief. You might want to look back at the belief and see what parts of it are irrational, are overblown, are pervasive or exaggeration that aren't appropriate, and replace those with more effective beliefs.
And tell me if I'm right, if I look at this, that our beliefs and the way we respond to adversity and events can be directly impacted by the relationships, the people we hang out with, and the ideas that we learn from them.
Having a model of someone who has been laid off and has found a job better than the job they had before is a great encourager and a great feed into our own beliefs about our own event.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, Marcia, it's been maybe a month ago or so, we had Robert Garcia on as a guest, that was his message and how he did it and the encouragement and, hey, you know what, things can work out, and they don't always work out in our own desired time frame. But the whole thing about resilience and finding some passion and really for him, it's been a game changer life-wise, for his life and his well-being. So but again, it just like you guys are reading off the same page here. This is great stuff. I think too often we get too focused on the X's and O's of, hey, I need a good resume, I need a job lead, I need this, I need that. And there's a lot more to life and the job search than simply those collateral materials. It's this and a whole host of other things. So
When
Just
we surveyed people at Career Action Ministry as to what was getting in their way of finding a job, their own loss of self-confidence was the biggest factor that was cited. So keeping yourself mentally strong and resilient is probably the most important thing you can do to find a new job.
So, Marcia, we got a few more minutes left. This is rich. This is really rich, and I'm getting a lot of value out of it my own self. Let's talk about for a few minutes. You know, what are some actions that people can take, not only to increase their resilience, but you know, do you have 2 or 3 or 4 actions that people could think about that could really have a powerful impact on their mind, the way they think, and flushing out that negative crap? Thoughts?
I only get 3 or 4.
Everybody, we're going to go for 2 hours a day. A few minutes worth of stuff, and just to poke us and make us think.
Sure. One of them is to look for silver linings, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're in this situation. It's not where you thought you'd be or where you wanted to be, but what's the positive? Is there something you can be grateful for? Is there something in your own past that you can learn from? I got laid off before. Last time it was networking that got me my new job. Maybe I should try networking this time too. Is there some self-discovery that you can do during this time off that might help give you new focus as to the direction you want to go and the purpose that you want to fulfill in your life? Is there something that you want to do to make yourself more of a subject matter expert? Would this be a good time to start a blog or write a white paper or start posting interesting articles to establish yourself on social media?
Yeah.
Breathe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay mindful. Or I think we get into our biggest trouble when we're focused on the past or the future, what terrible things might happen or what awful things have already happened. But if you can stay mindful about the present and what's happening now, question those unhelpful beliefs when they come up and look for what you can do that would be useful.
Yeah. In the chat, Steve mentions also helping other people.
Yes.
And part of the barriers I think that I know some of my clients put up is, I don't want to be perceived as a beggar, as needy. I just feel so bad about having to ask for a job. And yet, what if you were to offer help to others?
Yes.
It helps in a whole host of ways. There's so many things we could talk about. We've only got an hour here, but there's still more to cover. I really enjoy some of this stuff because I think back in my own life, and everybody has things that have happened, things that we've caused to happen, things we can learn from. And whether it's job, whether it's family, whether it's social life, whether it's whatever, we're not perfect, but I think if we can kind of get a handle on this incremental piece, I really kind of picked up on that. And Steve mentioned earlier, every day a goal of, let's say, the 20 contacts. I think too often, and I'm probably guilty of this too, is we see that end goal out there of a job, and we don't know when that's going to happen. If you told me I needed to do 20 push-ups a day and 20 sit-ups a day and I had to have a job in a week, that I can picture. Okay? I can picture that, and then I can do it knowing that I'll get the exact result. But too often, I think job hunters feel like they're flopping around in the water, and they don't know when that life raft is coming, what it's going to look like, and whole uncertainty and just not having control. They don't feel like they have that control. So I think the incremental pieces help give us a sense that we're making progress, that we can see that today was better than yesterday. Hopefully the future is better as we continue doing the right things, whether exercise, whether it's the reading, whether it's talking with people. But again, it's that activity that's productive and not counterproductive that I think helps get us where we need to go.
And Marcia,
I rest my case.
Sandra Dunlop basically said hello.
Yeah.
by saying that she took your workshop, Uncovering Your Calling.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is good stuff. Marcia, really appreciate this. Again, we're going to share your the handout. I'm going to make sure that's on the blog post. Going to make sure there's a link to it in the YouTube video that we share. If anybody has any questions, use the chat box to ask them. Marcia, hang with us, but thank you very much for showing up. We really do appreciate you making us think. And so, Randy, I have a couple things, and then I'll hand it off to you, if that'd be okay with you, sir.
Yeah, and I get a quick one for Marcia as well. If you had to leave folks with maybe one or two key takeaways here, what would they be? Job hunter folks.
Yep.
One or two key takeaway. If you remember nothing else, all right, let's make it like a sermon. Let's do 3 points, right? Give us 3 things that we need to take away that will help us in our walk.
Focus on what you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Set yourself a schedule that gives you time, moving time, exercising time, connecting with others, time working on your job search. And before you end each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. So good. Yeah, powerful.
Very good.
So a couple things to add to what I'm learning, and in some cases relearning, which is the heavy duty poke. Like, dude, I told you this before and you didn't listen to me, and I'm gonna have somebody come and tell you again, you know? And that is that, you know, the whole idea, my picture of resilience is I have to stop worrying that it won't work. A big piece of it. I have to stop worrying that it won't work, because, you know, the sky's not falling. You know, the world's not going to come to end. Yes, it may be painful. There may be things you have to deal with that you have to get through. I get that, but it's not going to be horrible. A dead dude by the name of Dale Carnegie wrote a book, and the name of the book is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And really something else that besides Toastmasters, it's the only other real thing that beyond my wife that I say changed my life in a very meaningful way is reading that book. Because I learned about day tight compartments. I learned about not worry about stuff I can't deal with. I learned about priorities and lots of other things that helped me build resilience as I quit my corporate job and started this business. So stop worrying and start living and I also learned this too. 99% of the crap that I think is going to freaking happen don't happen. And so all of that plays into how to help me to be more resilient. I hope it can help others be more resilient. Randy, I'll hand back to you, and then I'll introduce the next speaker.
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of random thoughts. I was going to talk about resumes, but now this has been such a compelling topic. I think we're motivated by a number of things, but the fear of loss and the expectation of gain are a couple of them. I had a boss that told me that, and you live either in one of those two worlds. And a lot of us fear loss, loss of a job, loss of respect, loss of money, family, health, you name it. And then there's the expectation of gain. And whether that's a new job, could even be a better job. Again, that life raft, not knowing what that's going to look like. I mean, yeah, you can go about it with purpose and try to talk to the right people, say the right things, keep the right mindset. But ultimately, you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years. If you're a job hunter right now, you just don't. And so something that, I've shared this several times, I think privately with Teddy and with others. I've had some business fail in my life, and I've worked with a lot of clients who've gone out on their own, started a business or bought a business, and it crashed and burned. Whether for the economy, whether the business model wasn't where it needed to be, for a number of reasons, things didn't work for them. and now they're looking to go back into corporate America. So I ask them, I say, so what'd you learn from it? Or would you do it again? And to a person, every single one of them said, I learned a lot. I don't regret having done it. And to your point, Marcia, you kind of learn as you go, and you see things that you don't want to do again, mistakes that you've made. And so I think that whole don't be afraid to fail. I know my boss, they in Goodwill entrusted me to start this professional center. It was the first one in the world for any Goodwill. And it's a brand new program. Is this thing going to work? We're going to hire this guy, come in and start this thing from a play in the dirt, just and draw it up. And we've grown to be a 3-person program, and we serve clients nationally. But again, there was no guarantee it was going to work. And every day you just try to do one thing a little better, and don't be afraid to fail. And I guess that's one of the things I'd encourage young people too that are watching this. If you've got kids graduating, I told a guy the other day, I said, you're young enough to screw up a bunch of times. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's just what it is. In fact, this morning, Marcia and Teddy, I had a conversation with somebody that, like so many people, they were just frustrated that nobody's calling me back. And I said the very same thing. I said, these guys, because a lot of friends in age, they're good people. But you know what? They're swamped. The ones that still have jobs, they're swamped. They're doing the best that they can. You need the advocate. So we talked kind of to get the focus away from what I'm not controlling, what I'm not getting, and focus on the things you can control more of, which is attitude, your time, your activities, and focus the energies in those positive ways. Again, it's not suddenly the curtain opens and here's a job, but if nothing else, you sleep a little better at night and you have that positive mindset where you can go out and be of help and inspiration to others like you've done, Marcia, over the years to help so many people go through a tough time. So again, I appreciate you coming on. And Teddy, I know next week we've got a new guest, but is there anything else to add from what we've covered? Any other points we'd like to throw out there?
Well, let's chat just for a quick moment about this relationship thing here. Mm-hmm. And that is that we need, one of my mantras I live by every day is meet someone new every single day of your life. Let me ask this question. Those of you who are on here, who's new? Just, type in a yes or type in a 1 or just use a chat and tell us how many of you are brand new to this show. If you would, just, any kind of comment. So James Barnart's the first time. Pam is brand new here. Anybody else new? Sandra's new. So think about this for a minute. Show up somewhere new. Meet someone new every day of your life. I will be, not only am I going to show up on a Saturday, and I think I told Marcia, I don't work on Saturdays, but I am going to show up and help on a Saturday, but I'm also going to visit on a Saturday to meet new people. Because if you want to build your strength, build your resilience, you need to meet new people. So, as often as you can, and Kendra's new and, Pepe's new, meet new people and listen to their ideas and have conversations. Randy had a conversation with a lady this morning. Her name is Leisha. I met Leisha at a networking event. And listen to the words I just used. I met Leisha at a networking event last week, virtual networking event. And she and I laughed a little bit, as Van says, he's also new. And she said, Teddy, I'd love to talk with you more. So we arranged up a conversation today. We did just like this, a Zoom conversation, and we laughed. And then we learned about each other. I learned about her, she learned about me. And it was a really, really rewarding conversation. Not only did the laughter help me build my resilience to work harder through the day, but I made a new friend. And so I really encourage people to think that way. So,
hey, about the elephant. Remember the elephant story?
Yeah, tell us about the elephant, buddy.
All right.
By the way, Lisa, I think Lisa asked for pictures.
No, well, they're not available. They are redacted. So how's that? No, I was a radio jock just a long time ago, and I won a pie eating contest. I did all kinds of crazy stunts and this and that. Well, anyway, the circus came to town, And so they needed a couple of local celebrities to ride into the circus, into the big tent, on top of these humongous elephants. These things are like the biggest thing that I've ever, I mean, I pulled my hamstring trying to throw my leg over the top of this thing. All I had to hold on to was a little tiny rope, just a rope they had wrapped around his belly. And the hairs on this elephant had in like porcupine things. I mean, it was just, and I had shorts on. So here I am, scared of heights. I climbed on this thing, which was tall enough when he was on his knees. Next thing I know, this thing stands up and I'm like, oh. And I was just a little flea on his back. And to your point, he could have just gone like that and I'd have been on, I'd have been on death row. But we rode, I had to literally duck to get under the tent. And here we paraded around ever so slowly. And this was just at the time when all those home video shows were coming out, where all the animals that go berserk and everything else, including elephants. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to die doing this. But it was one of those life experiences that, to your point though, the elephant didn't know the power that it had. And here's a little guy on top of this behemoth thing, but it was fun. We had a great time, and I was also good to get down. So all good. It all ended well.
I love hanging out with my friends who do weird and wild stuff. So
there's more, but we're gee, Teddy, look at the time.
Yep, let's wrap this up. And I want to tell you that next week we have another good friend that I'm developing over the last few years. Hannah Morgan is going to join us, and Hannah's conversation. Do a LinkedIn search and find Hannah. Follow her on LinkedIn. She has a huge LinkedIn network, so I won't tell you to connect with her, but at least follow her. Smart lady, new ideas, but listen to what she's bringing to the conversation. Why engaging on LinkedIn is important during job search. Denise, her name is Hannah, Hannah.
Yep.
Hannah Morgan, I'll drop her name in the chat box. And the conversation is about why engaging on LinkedIn is important during job search. Now, those of you who know me know that Hannah plays in my sandbox, and I'm good with that. So, so anyway, that's next Wednesday.
And also, if you have ideas, if you're watching, if you have ideas for future shows, future topics, or somebody that might make a good guest, then by all means, let us know. Find us on LinkedIn. So we're just about out of time. Marcia, again, thanks for joining us. And how could people reach you if they would like to do that? And we'll also include that in our show notes here.
Sure. It's Marcia at uncoveryourcalling.com. Marcia is Marcia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll drop your LinkedIn profile out there too, Marcia.
Fabulous. Okay? You're welcome to link to me.
Yeah. And if you send Marcia an invite to connect, if anybody on the show sends Marcia an invite to connect, you better have a personal note, and you better say in your personal note, oh my God, Marcia, I love that you came in and helped those two old guys. Words like that.
Hey, speak up, I can't hear you. What did you say? Huh? Yeah. Hey, again, thanks everybody for joining us. I think we're about out of time. It's 1 o'clock Eastern time. So what does that make it your time? 10 a.m., somewhere around there? So it's something like that. Anyway, thank you.
Math.
Marcia, I was a media major, so, take that for what it's worth. But again, thank you for joining us. Thanks for the questions. Thank you, Marcia, for joining us. And join us next week, and we'll have a new guest and a new topic. Have a good day, folks.
Marcia, thank you. See you all later.
I know.